The airport is an economic driver for the city and the county of Cullman. It absolutely has to be here to bring in the executives, the freight, people trying to do business here, construction companies, etc. You name it. We have to have an airport to bring those people in so they can look at the community, do the business they need to do in the community, and then get back to their home base.
So Ben, I think most people are used to flying on a commercial flight out of Huntsville, Birmingham, Atlanta. That doesn't happen here, but there's still a tremendous amount of traffic. We've got a line of private planes here. Tell us what actually goes on here for us laymen.
Okay, we're set up for a corporate generated traffic airport. So we have a lot of corporations here. Every industry at one point in time in the last 12 months has used this airport. That industry may not even know they've used this airport. It could be someone coming to visit them or one of their suppliers or something like that. What you see right behind me are the primary trainers. So Wallace State is here with their flight school, and these are all the primary trainer aircraft for that flight school. There's a massive need right now for pilots, there's a need for mechanics, there's a need for everyone in the aviation industry because there's not enough kids coming up to backfill all these needs.
Well, now, I'm glad you talked about that, because I remember being a child. This is a long, long time ago, and aviation wasn't what it is now. And my father would take me out to the airport, and we would literally park next to the runway, as close as you could get, and just watch the planes come and go.
That's right.
And I realized I've lived in a much bigger city than Cullman, but you can do that here. And I suspect that most kids, regardless of their age, don't even know that they can get a job here at the airport. They can, though, can't they?
They can. There are jobs everywhere, especially for these young kids that are looking for a career that may be different than the mainstream careers. There are pilot shortages all over. There are maintenance shortages all over. Every airline, every company in the world right now
and these aren't
looking.
minimum wage jobs. These are solid 5-figure, could be 6-figure jobs.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's from mechanics to
pilots,
engineers, you name it.
You name it.
Neil Guest with Guest Aviation. We're out here on the tarmac. I understand you got several planes out here.
I got a couple.
Now, what are you doing? Are you getting ready to put this in the hangar? Are you getting ready to fly or what?
I'm fixing to take it down to my hangar, taxi it down to my hangar, and do a 100-hour inspection on it.
I bet you that's part of the job, isn't it? Making sure these things are ready to fly and be safe.
That's correct.
Let's watch you do it.
We're doing that every 100 hours or every 12 months.
Now, one thing you might want to talk to Neil about, as I've talked to you about the pilot shortage, Neil is an A&P mechanic. So Neil has all of his mechanic ratings so he can work on all these aircraft. There are not many people that are coming up behind Neil to do this inspection work. So you don't have to be a pilot. We need mechanics just
so you're a dying breed, it sounds like.
Well, I'm still kicking, pretty good myself. But yeah, there's a shortage of pilots and mechanics, as a matter of fact.
Is that true around the country, or is that just
pretty
here
much
in Cullman?
so? Yes.
Well, then young people who don't know about this should think about doing that, because it pays pretty well, I would imagine.
It does. Once you're established in a shop somewhere at an airport, yeah, the hourly rate is pretty darn good.
Sounds good. And you've been doing that how long?
I've been at it about, I've had my ratings for about 15 years, but
you.
I've been flying since 1984.
How about that? That's great.
Yeah. And what about your mechanic ratings?
I've had mechanic rating for, I've had an IA for about 10 years.
Ben, my mother was funny. She really didn't like it when my father went to the airport, and she'd always say, well, Timmy, if God meant for man to fly, he'd given us wings. And of course, my father would always come back, well, he gave man enough smarts to put wings on stuff and fly. So there was this big argument, but it's always been fascinating, that's for sure. Now,
it's safer than driving.
It is safer than driving.
It's safer than driving, statistically speaking.
You've got a monthly tenant out here, one of my favorite groups of folks, Air Evac Life Team. Not only do they fly and land their helicopters, this is where they do maintenance, correct?
That's right. So the helicopter you're looking at right here, this is the helicopter that comes out if there's a call. This is the base helicopter. Hopefully you never have to go inside this helicopter, but if you need it, it's there. This is an excellent company, excellent program they have going on. If you ever need this helicopter and you need a life flight, this is what they're here for.
And these guys meticulously maintain these. I mean, this is professional aviation mechanics that you were talking about earlier, right?
That's right. So the mechanics that we're looking for, these guys are excellent mechanics. They've all come through the programs for the aviation mechanic program. They all have their ratings. This helicopter is always ready to go at a moment's notice. I think it probably takes them about 3.5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes to get it up and going. It's a very, very good group of people. That's right. You want someone who's intelligent, who can make this happen, who pays attention to the details. That's the key. The same as your pilot.
Now, let's walk towards the main building here. There's a orange and white pole with some kind of a dish on top of it with a light on it. Tell us what that does and why it exists.
Okay, that's called the beacon tower. So we are a general aviation airport, so that beacon rotates 360 degrees. Takes it about 20 seconds to make the complete rotation.
And here we've got somebody while we're talking.
That was Neil that just took off. He's going to get some fuel. So what the beacon light does, when you're out looking for the airport, especially at night, you can find that beacon tower. So it'll be white and green and white and green. It just constantly makes the rotation. So when you're 25, 30 miles out, depending on your altitude, you can start finding that beacon tower and it will guide you here to the airport.
And even when it's foggy and cloudy, you kind of bust through all that. You can spot it.
Depending on how low the ceilings are, but yeah, it helps quite a bit.
Now, how could parents and their children who might be interested in a career in aviation, whether that's a pilot, staff, maintenance, how can they get involved? I mean, do they come talk to you, or is there a phone number? How do we get young people who might be interested on board?
They can definitely come out here and talk to the airport. They can talk to myself. They can talk to anyone from Wallace. The best thing to do is just come here, take a look at it. We'll give you a quick little rundown of what everything needs to be, and then you can look at the curriculum set up for the flight school.
Well, what I found interesting, and I'll let you know that you've got people waiting for you up here. Now, here's a helicopter. What is that?
That is the Wallace State training helicopter. So
I didn't know Wallace had a training helicopter.
They do. They have 3 training helicopters, and they have 7 training aircraft.
How about that? There's no line. You can get right on one then.
That's right.
Now, the one thing I noticed, and I've been out here several times, and I think this every time I'm here, is I go up and eat in the cafe, and then I go downstairs, and Ben, I'm not being demeaning at all when I say it, it's like an old-time barbershop. You're the head barber, and you got a bunch of dudes who are hanging out. They're talking about politics. They're talking about how big the propeller is. If you can just bring your kids out here and let them hang out for a minute, these guys are full of stories.
That's right. They have tons of stories. Those guys have seen it and done it and been there, and they've flown a little bit of everything with all the ones that are sitting in there. So it's pretty interesting to listen to them.
I've got one last question. This is the average layman Cullman County person's question.
Okay.
And I am that, so I can ask it. Most people know we've got an airport, but they go, why do we have an airport? We don't have any airline flights. I mean, what's the deal?
Right.
How would you answer that?
The airport is an economic driver for the city and the county of Cullman. It absolutely has to be here to bring in the executives, the freight, people trying to do business here, construction companies, etc., you name it. We have to have an airport to bring those people in so they can look at the community, do the business they need to do in the community, and then get back to their home base.
I may be putting words in your mouth, but this is no different than the train station 100 plus years ago.
Absolutely.
You had to have a train station.
You had to have a train station.
You have to have an airport, right?
You have to have an airport if you want to grow.
Ben, thanks for talking to me. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Come back anytime.
I'll do it.